Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jim, for your comments, and they'll be here to answer questions. Thank you for your leadership on building the plants here, and most importantly, thank you for your leadership in operating our current plants safely and reliably. Although these new reactors receive most of the attention, maybe all the attention, we shouldn't forget the other parts of the nuclear energy business. Over the next 5 to 10 years, the United States will transition from importing more than 75% of its uranium enrichment needs to relying heavily on domestic enrichment capacity. The Urenco USA facility in Eunice, New Mexico, received approval last June to operate its first cascade of centrifuges. When construction is complete, the plant will have a total of 5.7 million separative work units, we call them SWU, of enrichment capacity, which represent roughly 1/3 of U.S. demand. The facility is the first of 4 planned uranium enrichment projects in the U.S. Areva's Eagle Rock Centrifuge Enrichment Facility in Idaho has received a conditional commitment for a $2 billion loan, DOE loan guarantee, and is on track to receive an NRC license and break ground this year. Areva could start operations at the planned 3.3 million SWU facility as early as 2014. USEC's American Centrifuge plant in Piketon, Ohio, has received an NRC combined license and is negotiating a $2 billion DOE loan guarantee. USEC's facility is planned for around 3.8 million SWU, and the company is poised to ramp up construction as soon as the loan guarantee details are finalized. And GE Hitachi is developing a new laser-based enrichment technology at its global laser enrichment facility in Wilmington, North Carolina. The company received an NRC license to operate a test loop using the laser enrichment process in 2008, and GE Hitachi has also submitted a license application to the NRC for a commercial facility, assuming the test loop results warrant moving to commercial deployment. Let me close with some thoughts about the outlook for policy and politics. The political environment changed dramatically with the November 2010 election, with a 6-seat swing in the Senate and a 64-seat swing in the House in the Republicans' favor. Civility is a goal, but it's clear that this is a high-friction environment. New bipartisan legislative proposals will be difficult, given that the election only further hardened partisan sentiment. So this will be a difficult environment in which to legislate. But that said, the politics of nuclear energy have actually improved. The Obama administration continues to support expansion of nuclear energy in the United States and around the world. Nuclear power enjoys bipartisan support in Congress, as we saw last year with the Kerry-Lieberman climate bill in the Senate, which contained an extremely favorable nuclear title. It's worth noting that shortly after the midterm election, President Obama, Speaker Boehner, and Senate Minority Leader McConnell singled out nuclear energy as an issue on which they all agree, an area for common ground in energy policy. In his State of the Union address a few weeks ago, President Obama challenged Congress again to support the deployment of clean energy technologies, including nuclear energy. The President's pragmatic approach should foster constructive bipartisan discussions in the Congress regarding energy. While energy legislation faces an uncertain future, when it eventually does occur, the indicators are that it will be favorable from a nuclear energy perspective. The industry's policy and political agenda for the 112th Congress and administration is consistent with our long-term objectives. In 2009, the administration nominated 3 qualified candidates for open seats on the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and all 3 were confirmed last year. I cannot overstate the importance of this. A credible and effective regulatory agency is essential to maintaining political and public confidence, and a full slate of commissioners brings greater regulatory effectiveness and predictability. Commissioner Ostendorf's term expires this year, and Commissioner Savinicki's term next year. Given the importance of a 5-member commission for regulatory predictability and continuity, we are advocating to see them both renominated and confirmed this year. As I mentioned earlier, we must ensure that the loan guarantee program is a workable financing platform. Nuclear projects in regulated states will move forward, as we've just heard, given appropriate state support, but merchant nuclear projects require credit support from the federal government. We will need additional loan volume and a rational, transparent process for calculating loan guarantee costs. Loan guarantees are a tremendous efficient way to mobilize private capital. Properly administrated and priced, the program can leverage tens of billions of dollars of private investment and produce hundreds of millions of dollars in fees for the federal government. A workable loan guarantee program combined with effective export trade policy, will create thousands of jobs during construction and operation and manufacturing and will support the rejuvenation and expansion of our national infrastructure to manufacture components for the U.S. and the global market. We also know the House will focus on oversight of major administration initiatives. NEI expects oversight of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the Department of Energy. Our goal in oversight is to ensure that the process is directed towards constructive change. We also expect oversight of the used fuel program, particularly the Obama administration's termination of the Yucca Mountain project in Nevada and its attempt to withdraw the license application filed with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. As you know, the administration created a Blue Ribbon Commission to evaluate the nation's used fuel policy and develop recommendations on how to restructure the back end of the nuclear fuel cycle and create a sustainable used fuel management program. The commission is a distinguished group chaired by former Congressman Lee Hamilton and former National Security Advisor General Brent Scowcroft. It has been meeting for almost a year and has until March of next year to issue its final recommendations. Although we don't support termination of the Yucca Mountain project and believe that the licensing work should continue, we have long believed that the government's overall used fuel program should be restructured. So we are working to influence the congressional oversight process and the Blue Ribbon Commission's review to support what we believe is a common sense strategy that the industry has proposed for several years now. We believe we should have interim storage. Certainly it's going to be at the plant sites, but also at centralized storage locations. We believe there should be research and technology development focused on closing the nuclear fuel cycle to obtain additional energy from the used fuel and reduce the volume and toxicity of the waste byproduct. We believe that we need to ultimately go to a permanent disposal facility, and we also advocate the creation of a federal corporation to assume responsibility for used fuel management from the Department of Energy. Although the government must take appropriate action to demonstrate that it's meeting its obligation under the Nuclear Waste Policy Act, we do not need a permanent disposal facility in the near term. Continued storage at plant sites, either in spent fuel pools or dry storage or at centralized storage facilities, is safe, secure, and presents no technical challenge for an extended period of time. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission reaffirmed that last year when it revised its waste confidence rule. The ruling was based on findings that used fuel could be safely stored for at least 60 years beyond the operation of any nuclear power plant, and that a disposal facility would be available when necessary. As I said earlier, we want to encourage realistic expectations about the pace of nuclear energy expansion in the United States. In the near term, we will not see large-scale construction programs like the 1970s and 80s, when we had 40 to 45 new plants coming online in a decade. Our developed, highly electrified economy simply does not require that kind of rapid expansion at this time. France, Great Britain, Japan, the rest of Europe, and other developed countries are also not building scores of new plants right now. We expect a steady, sustained, manageable construction program in the United States, accelerating as existing generating plants are retired and electrical demand increases. Developing economies like China and India are another matter, and nuclear construction around the world is booming. With 65 new reactors under construction and 156 on orders or planned, the global market represents at least a $400 billion opportunity over the next 20 years. The U.S. industry still has the most advanced and innovative technologies and designs, whether the advanced passive safety designs for large reactors or the small modular reactors now being considered, which may be particularly appropriate, by the way, for developing countries. We also offer training and guidance to achieve operational excellence as part of a package, and we intend to sell reactors, equipment, services, and fuels to capture our share of the global market. However, the competition for the market is fierce, and we must demonstrate the same level of U.S. government commitment and coordination as our competitors, and the same seamless government-industry integration. U.S. industry is encouraging Congress and the executive branch to support a new initiative that will integrate executive branch agencies into a Team USA concept to promote U.S. exports, improve export control regulations, provide financial incentives like accelerated depreciation and tax credits to companies expanding the nuclear supply chain here, and ensure that agreements for nuclear cooperation do not include unnecessarily restrictive unilateral requirements. Overly restrictive policies by our government will serve only to close us out of potential markets cost us thousands of jobs, and actually reduce our influence on nuclear nonproliferation policy. To conclude, safe, reliable operation will always be our top priority, as you've heard from me throughout, from Jim and from Steve. It is the platform for building public and political support for everything from license renewal to new plant construction and used fuel management. It is also the basis for nuclear plant contributions to the earnings of our companies. New nuclear plant licensing and construction is off to a good start. The NRC has been disciplined in the licensing process, and we are learning valuable lessons from overseas. We are focused on a few projects at first, making sure our project management is disciplined and our execution is meticulous. We will restructure the back end of the nuclear fuel cycle and manage it safely and successfully for the long term. We will provide reactors, equipment, fuel, and services to the global nuclear market. We will do all these things because we are focused and disciplined, and that focus and discipline will pay dividends in the future, just as it has in the past. Remember that we have a long-term perspective. Many of today's reactors will be producing electricity well past 2030. The new nuclear plants that start commercial operation in 2016 or so will reach the end of their initial license terms past mid-century and the end of their 60-year period of operation in 2076. Our assets will deliver clean energy, generate earnings, and provide a hedge against future environmental restrictions and against volatility in natural gas or other fossil fuel prices almost to the end of this century. I thank you for coming today. Myself, Steve, and Jim would be happy to answer any questions that you have.